Tonight, we sit beside an ancient fire, while night settles over the hills of Canaan. We walk the long years when Israel had no king, when memory dimmed like an ember in the wind, and mercy still waited in the wilderness. Now, let the room grow quiet around you. Let your breathing slow. This is the Shepherd's Bible. There was a time when Israel lived in the land of promise, but did not yet know how to live as a people of promise. The old warriors were gone. Joshua slept beneath the hill country of Ephraim. The elders who had seen the wonders of the Lord grew fewer with every passing year. The stones at Gilgal still stood in silence. The altars still remembered fire. The valleys still held the footsteps of tribes who had crossed the Jordan on dry ground. But memory, if it is not guarded, becomes like an ember in the wind, and across the hills of Israel the ember began to dim. In those days there was no king in Israel. There were tribes scattered like lamps across a darkening land. There were villages wrapped in olive smoke at evening. There were fathers who remembered the covenant, and sons who remembered only the fields. There were mothers singing old songs beside grinding stones, and children growing up under skies heavy with promise and danger. There were forgotten altars. There were strange gods beneath green trees. There were fires burning in distant hills, and again, when Israel forgot the Lord, darkness returned. Yet mercy still waited in the wilderness. After Joshua died, the land did not fall silent all at once. It breathed, it shifted, it waited. The tribes of Israel stood in their inheritances, each one with its own valleys, hills, springs, vineyards, towns, and unfinished battles. Judah had its rugged south and its ancient roads. Ephraim had green ridges and strong places among the hills. Manasseh stretched across wide lands. Benjamin lay between powers, close to Jerusalem's heights. Dan searched for room. Naphtali and Zebulun looked toward northern winds. Reuben, Gad, and half Manasseh kept their places beyond the Jordan, where the land rolled eastward under broad skies. The promise had been given. The land had been entered. But the work was not finished. After the death of Joshua, the children of Israel asked the Lord, "Who should go up first for us against the Canaanites?" And the Lord answered, "Judah shall go up." So Judah rose, and Simeon went with him. The early days still carried something of obedience. The tribes remembered to inquire of the Lord. They still knew that victory did not come from iron, or numbers, or the strength of men's arms. The land belonged to God before it belonged to them. Every valley, every spring, every walled town taken in faith was a testimony that the Lord had not forgotten his covenant. Judah went up into battle. The hills heard the sound of feet and the call of men gathering beneath banners. Dust rose on the roads. Swords flashed under the sun. Villages watched from their gates as the sons of Israel pressed into the land that had been promised to Abraham long before any of them were born. There was victory. There was also sorrow. There were moments when justice returned upon the head of men who had been cruel. There were cities taken, strongholds challenged, enemies driven back. Caleb, old, but still fierce in faith, still breathed the courage that had once seen giants and believed God more than fear. His family carried that fire. Othniel, son of Kenaz, took Kiriath-Sepher, and Achsah, Caleb's daughter, became his wife. Achsah asked for blessing from her father. She had been given land in the south, dry land beneath a hard sun, where the earth could crack open and the wind could move through thorn and stone. So she asked for springs of water, and Caleb gave her the upper springs and the lower springs. There is tenderness in that small scene. In a book that will grow darker as it moves, we are given, near the beginning, a father, a daughter, a request, and water. We see that inheritance is not only land, but life, not only territory, but springs, not only promise in the distance, but mercy flowing in the soil beneath one's feet. The Lord had given Israel with wells they had not dug, vines they had not planted, and houses they had not built. But the people would have to remain near the giver if they were to enjoy the gift rightly. Already, the first shadows were lengthening. Judah could not drive out all who lived in the valley, because they had chariots of iron. Benjamin did not drive out the Jebusites from Jerusalem. Manasseh did not fully possess Beth-shan, Tanach, Dor, Iblim, or Megiddo. Ephraim did not drive out the Canaanites from Gezer. Zebulun, Asher, Naphtali, and others left peoples living among them. Some enemies remained because of hard resistance. Some remained because Israel grew weary. Some remained because compromise is quieter than battle. At first, the Canaanites lived among Israel. Then Israel made them forced labor. But the people did not fully obey the command of the Lord. The unfinished work became a seedbed. What was left in the land would not remain harmless. The altars of Baal stood beneath trees. The poles of Asherah watched from hilltops. Old rites whispered from high places. The smell of foreign incense drifted in groves where the Lord's name should have been honored alone. The children of Israel had entered a land filled with stories older than their arrival, but not holier than the covenant God had given. They were called to be distinct, to worship the Lord, to walk in his ways, to remember Sinai, to teach their children, to keep the law close to heart and hand and mouth. But the world around them had bright colors and easy invitations. It offered rain gods for the fields, fertility gods for the womb, local gods for local fear, household gods for private comfort. And little by little, Israel began to forget that the Lord was not one God among many. He was the one who had brought them out of Egypt. He was the one who had split the sea. He was the one who had fed them with bread from heaven. He was the one who had led them by cloud and fire. He was the one who had brought down Jericho's walls. He was the one who had kept his promise when their fathers had died in the wilderness. Then the angel of the Lord came up from Gilgal to Bochim. Gilgal had been the place of beginning in the land, the place of stones and covenant memory. Bochim would become the place of weeping. The word came like a wound opened by truth. The Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt. He had brought them into the land sworn to their fathers. He had said he would never break his covenant with them. They were not to make covenants with the inhabitants of the land. They were to tear down their altars. But they had not obeyed. Why have you done this? The question moved over the gathered people like evening wind through dry grass. Why? Why turn from the one who delivered you? Why bow where you were warned not to bow? Why make peace with what would poison your children? Why forget mercy after receiving it? The people lifted up their voices and wept. They called the place Bochim, weepers. They sacrificed there to the Lord. For a moment, tears fell. For a moment, hearts trembled. For a moment, the people felt the weight of what they had done. But tears are not the same as lasting repentance. Israel served the Lord all the days of Joshua, and all the days of the elders who outlived Joshua, who had seen all the great work of the Lord. Then that generation was gathered to their fathers. Another generation rose after them, who did not know the Lord, nor the work which he had done for Israel. That sentence is one of the saddest in the long memory of Scripture. Not because God had ceased to speak, not because his deeds were hidden, not because the altars had vanished, or the stories could not be told, but because the memory was not carried faithfully from one generation to the next. The children inherited fields, but not wonder. They inherited houses, but not holy fear. They inherited the land, but did not cherish the Lord of the land. So the children of Israel did what was evil in the Lord's sight. They served the Baals. They forsook the Lord, the God of their fathers, who had brought them out of the land of Egypt. They went after other gods, the gods of the peoples around them, and bowed down to them. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, not the anger of a distant tyrant, not the anger of wounded pride, the anger of the covenant God, whose people had run after what would destroy them, the anger of a holy father watching his children step toward darkness while calling it light. So he gave them into the hands of plunderers. He sold them into the hands of their enemies round about, so that they could no longer stand. Wherever they went out, the hand of the Lord was against them for evil, as he had spoken and sworn to them, and they were greatly distressed. This is the rhythm that begins to sound through Judges: sin, suffering, crying out, mercy, deliverance, rest, then forgetting again. It is the turning of a wheel on a broken road. It is the sound of a door opening and closing in the night. It is the long grief of a people who needed rescue not only from enemies outside them, but from the wandering inside their own hearts. Yet the Lord raised up judges. They were not kings, though some had kingly strength. They were not always priests, though some spoke with holy fire. They were deliverers, rulers, warriors, prophets, flawed servants, surprising vessels. Some rose from strong families, some from forgotten places. Some came quietly, some arrived like thunder. Some were noble, some were deeply troubled. All of them stood within the mercy of God, who did not abandon Israel, even when Israel abandoned him. The first great oppression came from the east, from Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia. Israel had done evil. Israel had forgotten the Lord. Israel had served the Baals and the Asherahs. So the Lord gave them into the hand of this foreign king, and they served him 8 years. 8 years is long enough for children to grow without knowing freedom, long enough for fields to be taxed, houses searched, harvests diminished, men humbled, and mothers to whisper prayers over sleeping little ones while listening for hoofbeats in the night. The people cried to the Lord, and the Lord raised up a deliverer, Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger kinsman, the man who had once taken Kiriath-Sepher. There is steadiness around Othniel. No riddle surrounds him. No great inward hesitation is recorded. No tragic vow stains his story. He comes into the book like a strong pillar from an earlier, better age, carrying something of Caleb's faith, something of the old courage that believed the Lord could give what he had promised. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him. That is where deliverance begins. Not in Othniel's natural bravery, not in his family name, not in his past success. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he judged Israel. He went out to war, and the Lord delivered Cushan-Rishathaim into his hand. The land had rest 40 years. 40 years. A whole generation could grow beneath that rest. The fields could be planted without fear. Vines could be pruned. Children could run between tents at evening. Women could draw water without glancing constantly toward the road. Men could speak at the gates without dread of foreign demands. Sheep bells could sound in the hills. Smoke could rise from villages in peace. The wind could move through barley and wheat, and Israel could breathe again. But rest, too, can be dangerous when it is received without remembrance. For when Othniel died, the children of Israel again did what was evil in the Lord's sight. Again, the word falls softly, but heavily. Again. So the Lord strengthened Eglon king of Moab against Israel. Eglon gathered the children of Ammon and Amalek, went and struck Israel, and possessed the city of palm trees. The city of palm trees, Jericho's region, the place once marked by the first great victory in the land, became a place of subjugation. The memory of collapsed walls now stood beneath Moabite power. Israel served Eglon king of Moab 18 years. 18 years of tribute. 18 years of humiliation. 18 years in which the people must have asked whether the old deliverance stories still belonged to them. Then the children of Israel cried to the Lord, and the Lord raised them up a deliverer. Ehud, son of Gera, a Benjaminite, a left-handed man. In the old world, such a detail was not small. The right hand was expected. The left hand was surprising. What seemed unusual became part of the deliverance God prepared. Ehud made himself a double-edged sword, short enough to conceal. He fastened it under his clothing on his right thigh. Then he brought tribute to Eglon king of Moab. The king was a heavy man, surrounded by the weight of power and comfort. He sat in his cool upper chamber above the heat of the day, while Israel's tribute was brought before him. Ehud presented the tribute and sent away the people who carried it. Then he himself turned back from the carved stones near Gilgal. Those stones must have watched him like old witnesses. Gilgal, covenant, memory, circumcision, the place where reproach had been rolled away, the place where Israel first camped after crossing the Jordan. Ehud passed those stones, and perhaps his heart tightened within him. Perhaps he remembered that Israel had not been made for servitude beneath Moab. Perhaps the sight of carved stones, whether boundary or idol or marker, stirred the burden of a nation that had bowed too long. He returned to Eglon and said, "I have a secret message for you, O king." Eglon commanded silence, and all his attendants went out. Ehud came near. "I have a message from God for you." The king rose from his seat, and judgment came swiftly. We do not linger over the violence. This is a night story, and the scripture itself tells enough. Let it be understood with solemn restraint that the oppressor fell in his private chamber, and the door was shut behind him. Ehud escaped. The servants of Eglon waited until they were ashamed. They thought the king must be attending to himself in the cool room. They waited until waiting became worry. When they opened the doors, their king was fallen, and Ehud was gone. By then, the deliverer had passed beyond the carved stones and escaped to Serah. He blew a trumpet in the hill country of Ephraim. The sound rang through the ridges. It moved from slope to slope, from village to village, waking courage in weary men. "Follow me," Ehud said, "for the Lord has delivered your enemies, the Moabites, into your hand." They followed him down and took the fords of the Jordan against Moab. The river became a boundary of deliverance. Moab's strength was broken. That day, Israel subdued Moab, and the land had rest 80 years. 80 years. Long enough for memory to become gentle. Long enough for victory stories to be told by grandfathers who had heard them from their fathers. Long enough for the trumpet of Ehud to become a sound children imagined rather than heard. Long enough, sadly, for hearts to drift again. After Ehud came Shamgar, son of Anath. His story is brief, almost like a flash of lightning seen far away over a dark plain. He struck 600 Philistines with an ox goad, and he also saved Israel. That is all we are told. No long speech, no genealogy of depth, no description of the battle. Only a man, an ordinary tool, and the saving hand of God. An ox goad was not a royal weapon. It belonged to fields, to cattle, to work under the sun. But in the hand appointed for the hour, even a farmer's tool could become the sign that the Lord had not left his people. Then the cycle turned again. After Ehud died, the children of Israel again did what was evil in the Lord's sight. So the Lord sold them into the hand of Jabin king of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor. The captain of his army was Sisera, who lived in Harosheth of the Gentiles. He had 900 chariots of iron, and he oppressed the children of Israel mightily for 20 years. Chariots of iron. To farmers, shepherds, villagers, and tribesmen in hill country, such chariots were terror made visible. They thundered across plains. They split formations. They carried the confidence of kings. Their wheels pressed fear into the earth. The highways became empty. Travelers walked through byways. Villages ceased. In the places where women once drew water with laughter, there was caution. At the gates where elders once sat, there was unease. For 20 years, the pressure of Canaan lay over Israel like a low storm cloud that would not move. And in those days, Deborah judged Israel. Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, a mother in Israel. She sat beneath the palm tree of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the children of Israel came up to her for judgment. There is peace in the image. A palm tree, hill, country air, people coming with disputes, fears, questions, burdens. A woman of wisdom seated beneath shade, hearing, discerning, speaking with the authority God had given. In a fractured age, she became a place of clarity. In a fearful time, she listened to the Lord. She sent and called Barak, son of Abinoam, from Kedesh in Naphtali. The message was direct. Hasn't the Lord, the God of Israel, commanded you, go and draw toward Mount Tabor, and take with you 10,000 men of Naphtali and Zebulun? I will draw Sisera, the captain of Jabin's army, with his chariots and his multitude, to the river Kishon. I will deliver him into your hand. Barak heard. The word was clear, but fear, even when faith is present, can clutch the edge of the soul. If you will go with me, he said, then I will go. But if you will not go with me, I will not go. Deborah answered, I will surely go with you. Nevertheless, the journey you take will not be for your honor, for the Lord will sell Sisera into the hand of a woman. So Deborah arose and went with Barak to Kadesh. The tribes gathered. Zebulun and Naphtali came up. 10,000 men followed Barak. Mount Tabor rose before them, round and strong against the sky. Below, the plain stretched toward the waters of Kishon, where Sisera would bring his iron thunder. The word reached Sisera that Barak had gone up to Mount Tabor. So Sisera gathered his chariots, 900 chariots of iron, and all the people who were with him, from Harosheth of the Gentiles to the river Kishon. One can imagine the sound, the creak of harness, the snorting of horses, the clatter of wheels, the confidence of a commander who had crushed hope for 20 years. Then Deborah said to Barak, "Go. This is the day in which the Lord has delivered Sisera into your hand. Hasn't the Lord gone out before you?" That is the question that changes the battlefield. Hasn't the Lord gone out before you? Before Israel moved, God had moved. Before Barak descended, the Lord had gone ahead. Before the chariots rolled, heaven had already judged the matter. So Barak went down from Mount Tabor, and 10,000 men after him. The Lord confused Sisera, all his chariots, and all his army. The river Kishon, ancient river, swept in the song like an instrument of God. Whether storm and rain had swollen the waters, whether the ground beneath iron wheels turned soft and treacherous, Scripture sings that the heavens themselves seemed to fight. The stars in their courses fought against Sisera. The chariots, so feared, became useless. Sisera abandoned his chariot and fled on foot. The great commander left iron behind and ran like any frightened man beneath the hand of God. He fled to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. There was peace between Jabin and the house of Heber, and Sisera thought perhaps he had found safety. Jael went out to meet him. "Turn in, my lord," she said. "Do not be afraid." He entered. She covered him. He asked for water. She gave him milk. He told her to stand at the door and say no man was there if anyone asked. Then weariness overcame him. Sisera slept, and the word Deborah had spoken came to pass. Deliverance would not be credited to Barak's honor alone. The enemy of Israel fell by the hand of a woman in a tent. Again, we do not dwell on the harshness of the act. The age was severe, and oppression had been long. Let the scene pass softly, with the solemn recognition that the Lord overturned the power that had crushed his people. When Barak came in pursuit, Jael went out to meet him. "Come," she said, "and I will show you the man whom you seek." So God subdued Jabin king of Canaan before the children of Israel that day. And Deborah and Barak sang. The song rose like rain after drought. Because the leaders took the lead in Israel, because the people offered themselves willingly, bless the Lord. It remembered trembling mountains. It remembered empty highways. It remembered villagers who had ceased. It remembered Deborah arising as a mother in Israel. It remembered tribes that came and tribes that hesitated. It remembered Zebulun and Naphtali, who risked their lives on the heights of the field. It remembered the river Kishon sweeping away the proud. It remembered Jael in her tent. It remembered Sisera's mother looking through the lattice, wondering why his chariot delayed. And then the song turned toward the Lord. So let all your enemies perish, Lord, but let those who love him be as the sun when it rises in its strength. Then the land had rest 40 years. The sun rose over quiet fields. The river Kishon flowed on. The palm of Deborah cast its shade, and for a while Israel breathed. But the old sickness of the heart had not been healed. The children of Israel did what was evil in the Lord's sight, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of Midian 7 years. Midian did not rule like Moab or Canaan alone. Midian came like locusts. When Israel had sown, the Midianites came up, with Amalekites and the children of the east. They came with their livestock and tents, as numerous as grasshoppers. Their camels could not be counted. They entered the land to destroy it. They left no sustenance in Israel, no sheep, no ox, no donkey. Harvest became heartbreak. A farmer could work through the season, watch seed become green blade, watch blade become full head, watch the field turn golden beneath the sun, and then see raiders come over the horizon like a living shadow. So Israel made dens in the mountains, caves, strongholds, places of hiding. The people who had been brought into a land of milk and honey now crouched among rocks, threshing fear into their daily bread. Israel was brought very low because of Midian, and the children of Israel cried to the Lord. Before the deliverer came, a prophet came. This matters. The people needed rescue. Yes, but they also needed truth. A prophet spoke in the name of the Lord, reminding them that God had brought them out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. He had delivered them from the hand of the Egyptians and from all who oppressed them. He had driven their enemies out and given them the land. He had said, "I am the Lord your God. You shall not fear the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you dwell." But they had not listened. The word landed before the sword was lifted. The diagnosis came before the cure. Then the angel of the Lord came and sat under the oak in Ophrah, which belonged to Joash the Abiezrite. His son Gideon was beating out wheat in a winepress to hide it from Midian. A winepress is not where wheat belongs. Wheat belongs on a threshing floor, open to wind, where chaff can blow away. But Gideon was hidden, enclosed, making small movements in a place meant for grapes. Fear had pushed ordinary life into secret corners. The angel of the Lord appeared to him and said, "The Lord is with you, mighty man of valor." What a strange greeting for a hiding man. Gideon must have looked around at his own circumstances and felt the ache of the words. "Please, my Lord," he said, "if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened to us? Where are all his wondrous works which our fathers told us of, saying, 'Didn't the Lord bring us up from Egypt?' But now the Lord has cast us off and delivered us into the hand of Midian." There it is, the question of a suffering generation. If the Lord is with us, why? Why the caves? Why the stolen harvests? Why the fear? Why do the stories of Egypt sound like old songs from a land we cannot reach? But the question did not turn the Lord away. The Lord looked at him and said, "Go in this your might, and save Israel from the hand of Midian. Haven't I sent you?" Gideon did not feel mighty. He said his family was the poorest in Manasseh, and he was the least in his father's house. The Lord answered, "Surely I will be with you." That is the center. Not Gideon's confidence, not Gideon's rank, not Gideon's courage. Surely I will be with you. Gideon asked for a sign. He prepared an offering, brought meat, unleavened cakes, and broth. The angel of the Lord touched the offering with the end of the staff in his hand, and fire rose from the rock and consumed the meat and cakes. Then the angel vanished. Gideon trembled. He had seen the angel of the Lord face to face. But the Lord said to him, "Peace be to you. Do not be afraid. You shall not die." So Gideon built an altar there to the Lord and called it, "The Lord is Peace." What a name to raise. In a land of fear, the Lord is peace. Not Midian is strong. Not Israel is finished. Not fear is final. The Lord is peace. That night, the Lord commanded Gideon to tear down his father's altar to Baal, cut down the Asherah beside it, build an altar to the Lord, and offer sacrifice with the wood of the Asherah. Deliverance from Midian would begin at home. Before Gideon could face the enemies outside Israel, he had to face the idol inside his own household. So Gideon took 10 men of his servants and did as the Lord had spoken. But because he feared his father's household and the men of the city, he did it by night. His obedience was real, though trembling. The morning came. The men of the city rose and saw that Baal's altar had been broken down, the Asherah cut, and the second bull offered on a new altar. They searched. They learned Gideon had done it. They demanded his death. But Joash, Gideon's father, answered with unexpected wisdom. Would they contend for Baal? If Baal was a god, let him contend for himself, because someone had broken down his altar. So Gideon was called Jerubbaal, meaning, let Baal contend against him. The Midianites and Amalekites gathered. They crossed over and encamped in the valley of Jezreel. Then the Spirit of the Lord clothed Gideon. He blew a trumpet, and Abiezer was gathered after him. Messengers went through Manasseh, Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali. The tribes began to stir. Still, Gideon sought signs. He placed a fleece of wool on the threshing floor. If dew came only on the fleece, and the ground remained dry, he would know that God would save Israel by his hand. And it was so. He rose early, pressed the fleece, and wrung out dew enough to fill a bowl. Then he asked again, softly, cautiously, fearful of presuming, let the fleece be dry, and let dew be on all the ground. And God did so that night. The fleece was dry, and dew lay on all the ground. There is patience in the Lord's dealings with Gideon. Gideon's faith was not bold like Caleb's. It came with questions. It came with shaking hands. It came asking for reassurance in the night. But the Lord, who knew the man he had chosen, strengthened him. Then Gideon rose early with the people who were with him and encamped beside the spring of Harod. The camp of Midian lay north of them, by the hill of Moreh in the valley. Gideon had men now. Too many, the Lord said. Too many for Israel to think rightly. The people who are with you are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hand, lest Israel brag against me, saying, my own hand has saved me. So Gideon proclaimed that whoever was fearful and trembling could return. 22,000 left. 10,000 remained. Still too many. The Lord told Gideon to bring them down to the water, and there he would test them. Those who lapped water with their hands to their mouths were set apart from those who knelt down to drink. 300 men lapped, and the Lord said, by the 300 men who lapped, I will save you. 300 against a multitude. 300 against Midian, Amalek, and the children of the east, spread in the valley like locusts. The Lord reduced the army until the victory could not be mistaken for human greatness. That night, God told Gideon to go down against the camp. But if he was afraid, he could go down first with his servant Purah and listen. Gideon went. The camp lay below, vast and murmuring in darkness. Tents spread across the valley. Animals shifted. Men slept with weapons nearby. Fires burned low. The night had its own breath. Gideon came near and heard a man telling a dream to his companion. A cake of barley bread tumbled into the camp of Midian, struck a tent, and overturned it. The companion answered that this was nothing other than the sword of Gideon, son of Joash, a man of Israel. God had delivered Midian and all the army into his hand. When Gideon heard the dream and its interpretation, he worshipped. In the dark, near the enemy, before the battle, he bowed before God. Then he returned to Israel's camp and said, Arise, for the Lord has delivered the army of Midian into your hand." He divided the 300 men into 3 companies. He gave each man a trumpet and an empty pitcher, with a torch inside the pitcher. No swords are mentioned in their hands at first. Trumpets, pitchers, torches, the weapons of a strange victory. At the beginning of the middle watch, when sleep lies heavy and the night is deepest, they came to the edge of the camp. They blew the trumpets. They broke the pitchers. They held the torches in their left hands, the trumpets in their right hands, and they cried, "The sword of the Lord and of Gideon." All around the camp, the sound shattered the night. Trumpets rang. Clay broke. Fire appeared suddenly in 3 directions. The Midianite camp erupted in confusion. Men cried out and fled. The Lord set every man's sword against his companion throughout the camp. The victory belonged to God. Israel pursued. Other tribes were called. The fords were taken. The princes of Midian, Oreb and Zeb, were captured and defeated. Then came trouble among brothers. The men of Ephraim complained to Gideon, because he had not called them at the beginning. Their anger was sharp, but Gideon answered gently, "What have I done now, in comparison with you? Isn't the gleaning of Ephraim better than the vintage of Abiezer?" He praised their roll, and their anger subsided. A soft answer turned away wrath. Still, the story continued into wearier country. Gideon and his 300 men came to the Jordan and crossed over, faint yet pursuing. Their bodies were tired, their throats dry, their limbs heavy. Victory had begun, but the chase was not done. He asked the men of Succoth for bread for the people who followed him. They refused. He asked Penuel. They refused also. Fear made them cold. They did not want to risk helping Gideon until the kings of Midian were fully in his hand. Gideon spoke words of future judgment and pressed on. He pursued Zebah and Zalmunna, kings of Midian, and captured them. He returned, punished Succoth and Penuel, and completed the victory. Then Israel said to Gideon, "Rule over us, both you, your son, and your son's son also, for you have saved us out of the hand of Midian." Here was the temptation of kingship before the time of kings. Gideon answered well, "I will not rule over you, neither shall my son rule over you. The Lord shall rule over you." That was true. That was beautiful. That should have been the end of it. But human hearts are not healed by one noble sentence. Gideon asked for gold from the spoil. The people gave earrings from their plunder, along with ornaments, chains, purple clothing, and the collars of the camels. Gideon made an ephod from it and put it in his city, Ophrah, and all Israel played the prostitute after it there. It became a snare to Gideon and his house. How quietly danger can enter after victory. Not through an enemy army, not through chariots, not through Midian's raid, but through an object associated with triumph, placed too near devotion, drawing the heart away from the Lord. The land had rest 40 years in the days of Gideon. Midian was subdued. Israel lifted its head. Gideon had many sons, for he had many wives. He also had a son by his concubine in Shechem, and he called his name Abimelech. Gideon died in a good old age, and was buried in the tomb of Joash his father, in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. As soon as Gideon was dead, the children of Israel turned again, and played the prostitute after the Baals. They made Baal-berith their god. They did not remember the Lord their God, who had delivered them out of the hand of all their enemies on every side. They did not show kindness to the house of Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, according to all the goodness he had shown to Israel. The forgetting was complete. And from that forgetting came one of the bitterest stories in Judges. Abimelech went to Shechem, to his mother's relatives. He spoke to them and to the whole clan of his mother's father. "Please speak in the ears of all the men of Shechem," he said. "Which is better for you, that all the sons of Jerubbaal, 70 persons, rule over you, or that one rule over you? Remember also that I am your bone and your flesh." His mother's relatives spoke for him. The hearts of the men of Shechem inclined toward Abimelech. They gave him silver from the house of Baal-berith, and with it he hired reckless and worthless men, who followed him. Then Abimelech went to his father's house at Ophrah, and killed his brothers, the sons of Jerubbaal, 70 persons on one stone. But Jotham, the youngest son, escaped, for he hid himself. The first attempt at kingship in Judges begins not with anointing, but with blood, not with covenant, but ambition, not with the Lord's command, but the silver of an idol's house. The men of Shechem gathered and made Abimelech king by the oak of the pillar that was in Shechem. When Jotham heard, he went and stood on the top of Mount Gerizim. His voice rose over the city below, like a lone bird crying from a high rock. "Listen to me, you men of Shechem, that God may listen to you." Then he told a parable. The trees went out to anoint a king over themselves. They said to the olive tree, "Reign over us." But the olive tree would not leave its fatness, by which God and man are honored, to wave over the trees. They said to the fig tree, "Come and reign over us." But the fig tree would not leave its sweetness and good fruit. They said to the vine, "Come and reign over us." But the vine would not leave its new wine, which cheers God and man. Then all the trees said to the bramble, "Come and reign over us." The bramble said, "If in truth you anoint me king over you, then come and take refuge in my shade. If not, let fire come out of the bramble and devour the cedars of Lebanon." It was a warning wrapped in a fable. A bramble gives little shade. A bramble catches fire easily. A bramble king brings danger to all. Jotham declared that if the men of Shechem had dealt truly and rightly with Jerubbaal and his house, then they could rejoice in Abimelech. But if not, let fire come out from Abimelech and devour the men of Shechem, and let fire come out from Shechem and devour Abimelech. Then Jotham fled. For 3 years Abimelech ruled. Then God sent an evil spirit between Abimelech and the men of Shechem. Treachery rose, distrust spread. The city that had made him king began to turn against him. The violence Abimelech had sown began to grow its own harvest. Gal, son of Ebed, came with his brothers and won the confidence of the men of Shechem. At a feast, with hearts reckless and tongues bold, he spoke against Abimelech. Zebul, ruler of the city, heard and sent word. Abimelech came by night. Ambushes were set. Morning came, and Gal stood at the entrance of the city gate. He saw people coming down from the mountain tops. At first Zebul mocked his sight. "You see the shadows of the mountains, as if they were men." But the shadows became soldiers. Battle followed. Gal was driven out. Shechem was taken. Abimelech fought against the city, captured it, killed the people, beat down the city, and sowed it with salt. The men and women of the tower of Shechem fled to the stronghold of the house of El-berith. Abimelech took branches, commanded his men to do likewise, and burned the stronghold over them. It was a dreadful fulfillment of Jotham's word. Fire from the bramble, fire consuming Shechem. Then Abimelech went to the bears. He captured the city, but there was a strong tower within it, and all the men and women fled there. They shut themselves in and went up to the roof. Abimelech came near to burn it with fire, but a woman dropped an upper millstone on his head, and he was mortally wounded. He called quickly to the young man who carried his armor and told him to draw his sword, so that it would not be said that a woman had killed him. His servant did as he asked. Abimelech died. When the men of Israel saw that Abimelech was dead, they departed, each to his place. Thus God repaid the wickedness of Abimelech, which he did to his father, by killing his 70 brothers. And all the wickedness of the men of Shechem God returned on their heads. On them came the curse of Jotham, son of Jerubbaal. The land had not been saved by Abimelech. It had been scorched by him. The story leaves a bitter taste, like smoke after a house is burned. After Abimelech, Tola son of Puah, son of Dodo, a man of Issachar, arose to save Israel. He lived in Shamir, in the hill country of Ephraim. He judged Israel 23 years. We are told little more. Perhaps that is mercy. Not every faithful life is recorded with thunder. Some leaders serve quietly. They hold the center when the edges begin to fray. They judge, listen, settle disputes, restrain evil, and leave behind no famous song, but a generation kept from falling further. Tola died and was buried in Shamir. After him arose Jair, the Gileadite, who judged Israel 22 years. He had 30 sons who rode on 30 donkey colts, and they had 30 cities in the land of Gilead. There is a sense of order, wealth, and stability in that note. 30 sons, 30 donkeys, 30 cities. For a time, leadership sat visibly in the land. Then Jair died and was buried in Carmel. But Israel again did what was evil in the Lord's sight. This time, the list of their gods stretches long and weary. They served the Baals, the Ashtaroth, the gods of Syria, the gods of Sidon, the gods of Moab, the gods of the children of Ammon, and the gods of the Philistines. They forsook the Lord and did not serve him. So the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel. He sold them into the hand of the Philistines and the children of Ammon. That year they crushed and oppressed the children of Israel. For 18 years they oppressed those beyond the Jordan in Gilead, in the land of the Amorites. The children of Ammon also crossed the Jordan to fight against Judah, Benjamin, and the house of Ephraim. Israel was very distressed. Then the children of Israel cried to the Lord, "We have sinned against you, because we have forsaken our God and have served the Baals." But this time the answer was not immediate comfort. The Lord said, "Didn't I save you from the Egyptians, the Amorites, the children of Ammon and the Philistines? The Sidonians also and the Amalekites, and the Maonites oppressed you, and you cried to me, and I saved you out of their hand. Yet you have forsaken me and served other gods. Therefore I will save you no more. Go and cry to the gods which you have chosen. Let them save you in the time of your distress." What a terrible mercy that word is. Sometimes judgment is God allowing idols to show what they truly are. Let the gods you chose answer you. Let the things you trusted rescue you. Let the wooden image speak. Let the stone hear. Let the powerless save. Israel answered, "We have sinned. Do to us whatever seems good to you. Only deliver us, please, today." Then they put away the foreign gods from among them and served the Lord. And his soul was grieved for the misery of Israel. Let that sentence rest. His soul was grieved. The Lord is not cold toward the suffering of his people, even when their suffering comes through their own rebellion. His holiness does not cancel his compassion. His judgment does not erase his covenant mercy. The children of Ammon gathered in Gilead. Israel gathered at Mizpah. The people and princes of Gilead asked, "Who is the man who will begin to fight against the children of Ammon? He shall be head over all the inhabitants of Gilead." There was a man named Jephthah, a mighty man of valor, son of Gilead. But his mother had been a prostitute, and his brothers drove him away. "You shall not inherit in our father's house," they said, "for you are the son of another woman." So Jephthah fled from his brothers and lived in the land of Tob. Worthless fellows gathered around him, and they went out with him. He became a man on the margins, rejected by his own house, useful in war, unwanted in inheritance. Then, when Ammon made war against Israel, the elders of Gilead went to bring Jephthah from Tob. "Come and be our chief," they said, "that we may fight with the children of Ammon." Jephthah heard the old wound beneath the new request. "Didn't you hate me and drive me out of my father's house? Why have you come to me now when you are in distress?" They answered that they had turned to him now, so that he might go with them, fight, and become head over the inhabitants of Gilead. Jephthah agreed, but the matter was spoken before the Lord at Mizpah. Then Jephthah sent messengers to the king of Ammon. "What do you have against me, that you have come to fight against my land?" The king of Ammon claimed that Israel had taken his land when they came up from Egypt, from the Arnon to the Jabbok and the Jordan. He demanded it back. Jephthah answered with history. He told the story of Israel's journey, how they had not taken Moab or Ammon's land, how Sihon king of the Amorites had fought against Israel, and how the Lord had delivered Sihon into Israel's hand. Israel had possessed the land of the Amorites for 300 years. Why had Ammon not recovered it in that time? Then Jephthah said, "May the Lord, the judge, be judged today between the children of Israel and the children of Ammon." But the king of Ammon would not listen. Then the Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah. He passed over Gilead and Manasseh, passed over Mizpah of Gilead, and went toward the children of Ammon. And then, in a moment that fills the heart with unease, Jephthah made a vow. "If you will indeed deliver the children of Ammon into my hand, then whatever comes out of the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering." The words went out. Words once spoken cannot be gathered like spilled grain. Jephthah crossed over to the children of Ammon, and the Lord delivered them into his hand. He struck them with a very great victory, and the children of Ammon were subdued before Israel. Then Jephthah came home to Mizpah. His house stood waiting. The door opened. His daughter came out to meet him with tambourines and dancing. She was his only child. Beside her, he had neither son nor daughter. The victory song broke in his heart. When he saw her, he tore his clothes. "Alas, my daughter, you have brought me very low. You are one of those who trouble me, for I have opened my mouth to the Lord, and I cannot go back." Her answer is one of the most solemn in all judges. "My father, you have opened your mouth to the Lord. Do to me according to that which has proceeded out of your mouth, because the Lord has taken vengeance for you on your enemies, the children of Ammon." Then she asked for 2 months to go down upon the mountains with her companions and mourn. She went with her friends. The hills of Gilead received their grief. The winds moved softly over the ridges. Young women walked together in the shadow of a vow that should never have been spoken. The scripture tells the story with restraint. Across the generations, faithful readers have spoken carefully here, some understanding that she was given to lifelong service and never married, others seeing a darker fulfillment. Either way, Judges gives us the sorrow plainly enough. Jephthah's vow brought grief into his own house. His victory over Ammon did not become simple joy. Every year, the daughters of Israel went to commemorate the daughter of Jephthah, the Gileadite, 4 days in a year. That remembrance matters. In the book of Judges, women often bear the cost of men's vows, wars, ambitions, and failures. The story does not ask us to look away. It asks us to feel the ache of a time when Israel had deliverers, but not yet peace in the deepest places. After this, conflict rose between Jephthah and Ephraim. The men of Ephraim complained that they had not been called to fight against Ammon. Their anger became violent. Jephthah answered that he had called and they had not delivered him. So he had risked his life, and the Lord gave victory. Then Gilead fought Ephraim. At the fords of the Jordan, a sad test was made. Those trying to flee were asked to say Shibboleth. If they said Sibboleth, unable to pronounce the word rightly, they were seized. Many fell. It was civil blood. Israel had been delivered from Ammon, but brother now struck brother at the river. Jephthah judged Israel 6 years. Then he died, and was buried in one of the cities of Gilead. After him, Ibzan of Bethlehem judged Israel. He had 30 sons and 30 daughters. He sent his daughters abroad, and brought in 30 daughters from abroad for his sons. He judged Israel 7 years, then died, and was buried at Bethlehem. After him, Elon the Zebulunite judged Israel 10 years. He died, and was buried in Aijalon, in the land of Zebulun. After him, Abdon son of Hillel the Pirathonite judged Israel. He had 40 sons and 30 grandsons who rode on 70 donkey colts. He judged Israel 8 years, then died, and was buried in Pirathon, in the land of Ephraim, in the hill country of the Amalekites. These judges pass like lamps seen across a valley at night. A name, a place, a few details, a burial. Not every generation is remembered for its drama. Some are remembered because, for a time, someone judged, someone held order, someone stood between the people and complete unraveling. But again, the children of Israel did what was evil in the Lord's sight, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of the Philistines 40 years. 40 years under Philistine shadow. This oppression was different. It stretched long, heavy, and near the western lands. The Philistines were organized, skilled, dangerous. Their towns stood toward the coast. Their pressure reached inland. Israel did not cry out in the same way here, at least not in the words recorded. Perhaps they had grown accustomed to bondage. Perhaps the chains had become familiar. Perhaps the people no longer knew how strange it was to live beneath another nation's hand. But mercy moved before the cry was heard. There was a certain man of Zorah, of the family of the Danites, whose name was Manoah. His wife was barren, and had borne no children. The angel of the Lord appeared to the woman. See now, you are barren and bear no children, but you shall conceive and bear a son. Now therefore, please beware, and drink no wine nor strong drink, and don't eat any unclean thing. For, behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. No razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazirite to God from the womb. He shall begin to save Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. He shall begin, not finish. Begin. Even before the child existed in his mother's arms, his life was set apart. His hair would remain uncut. His calling would be visible. His strength would be unusual. His story would be mighty and tragic, bright and shadowed, filled with the Spirit and tangled with desire. The woman went and told her husband. A man of God had come to her, with a face like the angel of God, very awesome. She did not ask where he came from, and he did not tell her his name. Manoah prayed, "Lord, please let the man of God, whom you sent, come again to us, and teach us what we should do to the child who shall be born." God listened. The angel came again to the woman as she sat in the field. Manoah was not with her. She ran quickly and told him. Manoah arose and followed. He asked the angel how they should order the child's life. The angel repeated the instruction. Manoah offered hospitality, not yet knowing who spoke with him. The angel told him that if he made a burnt offering, he must offer it to the Lord. Manoah asked his name. "Why do you ask about my name?" The angel said, "Since it is wonderful." So Manoah took a young goat with the meal offering and offered it on the rock to the Lord. As the flame went up toward the sky from the altar, the angel of the Lord ascended in the flame. Manoah and his wife fell on their faces to the ground. Manoah feared they would die, because they had seen God. But his wife answered with quiet wisdom. If the Lord had meant to kill them, he would not have received the offering, shown them these things, or told them such news. Then the woman bore a son, and called his name Samson. The child grew, the Lord blessed him, and the Spirit of the Lord began to move him in Mahaneh-dan, between Zorah and Eshtaol. Samson's story begins with blessing, but blessing does not remove danger when the heart is undisciplined. Samson went down to Timnah and saw a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. He came back and told his father and mother, "I have seen a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. Now therefore get her for me as my wife." His parents were troubled. "Is there never a woman among the daughters of your brothers, or among all my people, that you go to take a wife of the uncircumcised Philistines?" But Samson said to his father, "Get her for me, for she pleases me well." His parents did not know that this was of the Lord, for he sought an occasion against the Philistines. This does not make Samson's desire pure. It means God was sovereign even through tangled motives. Samson went down with his father and mother to Timnah. At the vineyards of Timnah, a young lion roared against him. The Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and he tore the lion as one might tear a young goat, though he had nothing in his hand. He did not tell his father or mother what he had done. Later, returning to take the woman, he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion. Bees and honey were there. He took some honey in his hands and ate as he went, and gave some to his father and mother. But he did not tell them that he had taken it from the body of the lion. Already Samson moved near forbidden things. Already the Nazirite's separation was clouded. At the wedding feast, Samson told a riddle to 30 companions. Out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. For 7 days they could not solve it. They threatened his wife, and she pressed Samson with tears. On the 7th day he told her, and she told the riddle to the men. Before sunset they answered, "What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion?" Samson answered bitterly, "If you hadn't plowed with my heifer, you wouldn't have found out my riddle." The Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him. He went down to Ashkelon, struck 30 men, took their garments, and gave them to those who explained the riddle. His anger burned, and he went up to his father's house. His wife was given to his companion. When Samson later returned with a young goat to visit his wife, her father would not allow him in. He explained that he thought Samson hated her and had given her to his companion. Samson's anger flared again. He caught 300 foxes, tied them tail to tail with torches between them, set the torches on fire, and released them into the Philistines' standing grain, vineyards and olive groves. Fields burned. The Philistines retaliated cruelly against the woman and her father. Samson retaliated again and went to live in the cleft of the rock of Etam. The Philistines came up and encamped in Judah. The men of Judah asked why they had come. They answered, "We have come to bind Samson, to do to him as he has done to us." Then 3,000 men of Judah went down to the cleft of the rock of Etam. They said to Samson, "Don't you know that the Philistines are rulers over us? What then is this that you have done to us?" The words reveal the condition of Israel. The Philistines are rulers over us. Not, "The Lord is our God." Not, "Why should we serve them?" But, "Do you not know how things are?" Bondage had become normal. Samson allowed them to bind him with 2 new ropes, after they swore not to kill him themselves. They brought him up from the rock. When he came to Lehi, the Philistines shouted as they met him. Then the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him. The ropes on his arms became like flax burned with fire, and his bands melted from his hands. He found a fresh jawbone of a donkey, took it, and struck down 1,000 men. Again, the violence is told in Scripture, but we pass over it gently, like moonlight over a battlefield after the noise is gone. Samson's strength was real. The Lord's power came upon him. The Philistine hold was shaken. Then Samson became very thirsty. He cried to the Lord, "You have given this great deliverance by the hand of your servant, and now shall I die of thirst." God split the hollow place at Lehi, and water came out. Samson drank, his spirit returned, and he revived. The place was called On Hakore, the spring of the one who called. Even Samson, mighty Samson, needed water from God. Strength cannot save a man from thirst. Victory cannot replace dependence. Samson judged Israel in the days of the Philistines 20 years, but his path kept bending toward danger. He went to Gaza. The people of Gaza heard he was there and surrounded him, waiting all night at the gate, saying they would kill him in the morning. Samson lay until midnight, then rose, took hold of the doors of the city gate, the 2 posts, bar and all, put them on his shoulders, and carried them to the top of the hill before Hebron. It was a sign of humiliating strength against the Philistines. But signs of strength do not mean the heart is guarded. Afterward, Samson loved a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. The lords of the Philistines came to her. They offered silver if she would entice Samson and learn where his great strength lay, and how they might overpower him. So Delilah asked, "Please tell me where your great strength lies, and how you might be bound to afflict you." Samson toyed with the danger. Fresh bowstrings, new ropes, locks woven into a loom. Each time Delilah called, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." Each time he broke free. Each time the danger came closer. Delilah pressed him daily with her words, and urged him until his soul was troubled to death. At last he told her all his heart. No razor had ever come upon his head, for he had been a Nazirite to God from his mother's womb. If he were shaved, his strength would leave him, and he would become weak like any other man. Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart. She called the Philistine lords. Samson slept on her knees, A man shaved off the 7 locks of his head. Then she began to afflict him, and his strength went from him. She said, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." He awoke and said, "I will go out as at other times and shake myself free." But he did not know that the Lord had departed from him. That may be the most sorrowful line in Samson's story. He did not know. A man can become so accustomed to mercy that he mistakes it for possession, so accustomed to power that he forgets dependence, so accustomed to escape that he does not recognize the moment the door has closed. The Philistines seized him. They put out his eyes. They brought him down to Gaza. They bound him with bronze shackles, and he ground grain in the prison. But the hair of his head began to grow again, after it had been shaved. Quietly, slowly, in darkness, the lords of the Philistines gathered to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon their god and to rejoice. They said their god had delivered Samson their enemy into their hand. When the people saw him, they praised their god. They called for Samson to entertain them. He was brought from prison and made to stand between the pillars. The house was full of men and women. All the lords of the Philistines were there. About 3,000 men and women were on the roof, watching. Samson said to the boy who held his hand, "Let me feel the pillars on which the house rests, that I may lean on them." Then Samson called to the Lord, "Lord God, remember me, please, and strengthen me. Please, only this once, God, remember me." At the end, after pride, desire, strength, folly, vengeance, and blindness, Samson prayed to be remembered. He leaned with all his might. The house fell upon the lords, and upon all the people who were in it. Samson died there. His brothers and all his father's house came down, took him, brought him up, and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol in the tomb of Manoah his father. He had judged Israel 20 years. Samson began to save Israel from the hand of the Philistines. Began. The story of deliverance would continue beyond him. The Philistine shadow would remain into the days of Samuel, Saul, and David. But Samson's life, for all its sorrow, had cracked the pride of Israel's oppressors. His final prayer, spoken in darkness, rose to the God who still heard. After Samson, the book of Judges turns into its final valley. The stories are no longer mainly of foreign oppression and deliverance. They are stories of inner collapse, stories of worship twisted, hospitality broken, tribes at war. The refrain grows louder. In those days, there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. There was a man of the hill country of Ephraim, whose name was Micah. He told his mother that the silver she had lost, the silver over which she had uttered a curse, was with him. He himself had taken it. His mother blessed him in the name of the Lord, then dedicated silver to make a carved image and a molten image. The contradiction sits heavy. The name of the Lord on the lips, an idol in the house. Micah had a house of gods. He made an ephod and household idols, and consecrated one of his sons to be his priest. In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. This does not mean every man did what pleased him with open rebellion only. Sometimes rebellion wears religious clothing. Sometimes a man says the Lord's name while building what the Lord forbade. Sometimes a household shrine feels safer than holy obedience. A young Levite from Bethlehem in Judah came traveling, looking for a place to live. He came to Micah's house in the hill country of Ephraim. Micah asked where he came from. "I am a Levite of Bethlehem, Judah," he said, and I am looking for a place to live." Micah offered him silver, clothing, food, and a place as priest. The Levite was content. Micah consecrated him. Then Micah said, "Now I know that the Lord will do good to me, since I have a Levite as my priest." It is a tragic confidence. He believed that religious arrangement could secure blessing, while his worship was disordered at the root. A Levite in the house did not make idols holy. A priestly title did not make disobedience safe. At the same time, the tribe of Dan was seeking an inheritance to dwell in, for their inheritance had not fully fallen to them among the tribes. 5 men from Dan went out from Zorah and Eshtaol to spy out the land. They came to the hill country of Ephraim, to Micah's house, and lodged there. They recognized the Levite's voice and asked what he was doing there. He explained that Micah had hired him as priest. They asked him to inquire of God whether their journey would prosper. He told them to go in peace. The 5 men went on and came to Laish. They saw a people quiet and unsuspecting, living securely, far from Sidon, with no dealings with others. The land was broad and lacking nothing. They returned to their brothers and urged them to arise. 600 men from Dan set out armed for war. They came again to Micah's house. The 5 spies went in and took the carved image, ephod, household idols, and molten image. The priest asked, "What are you doing?" They told him to be silent. "Is it better for you to be priest to the house of one man, or to be priest to a tribe and a family in Israel?" The priest's heart was glad. He took the ephod, the household idols, and the carved image, and went with the people. A priest for hire became a priest for a larger offer. Micah pursued with his neighbors. He cried out after the children of Dan. They turned and asked what ailed him. "You have taken away my gods which I made, and the priest, and have gone away," he said. "What more do I have?" That question exposes the emptiness of idolatry. "You have taken away my gods." What kind of God can be stolen? What kind of hope can be carried off by stronger men? What kind of refuge must be guarded from thieves? The Danites warned Micah not to let his voice be heard, lest angry men fall on him and his household. When Micah saw they were too strong, he turned back. The Danites went to Laish, to a quiet and unsuspecting people. They struck the city, burned it, rebuilt it, and called its name Dan. They set up Micah's carved image. Jonathan, son of Gershom, son of Moses, and his sons became priests to the tribe of Dan until the day of the captivity of the land. The idol remained all the time. The house of God was in Shiloh. The house of God was in Shiloh. True worship stood in Israel. Yet a tribe set up its own image. The land of promise was becoming spiritually divided, household by household, tribe by tribe. Then comes one of the darkest memories in Judges. We must walk here slowly, not with sensational detail, not with harsh fascination, but with grief, reverence, and restraint. In those days, when there was no king in Israel, there was a certain Levite living in the far side of the hill country of Ephraim. He took for himself a concubine from Bethlehem in Judah. She went away from him to her father's house in Bethlehem, and was there 4 months. Then her husband arose and went after her, to speak kindly to her and bring her back. He had his servant and 2 donkeys with him. She brought him into her father's house, and when the young woman's father saw him, he rejoiced to meet him. The father-in-law kept him there. 3 days passed with eating, drinking, and lodging. On the 4th day they rose early to depart. But the father urged him to strengthen his heart with bread and stay longer. He stayed. On the 5th day again, the father urged them to remain until the day declined. Hospitality held them too long. As evening approached, the man finally rose to leave with his concubine and servant. The father urged him to stay the night, but he would not. They traveled near Jebus. That is Jerusalem. The day was far spent. The servant suggested they turn aside into the city of the Jebusites and lodge there. But his master refused. "We will not turn aside into the city of a foreigner that is not of the children of Israel. We will pass over to Gibeah." They pressed on. The sun went down near Gibeah, which belonged to Benjamin. They entered and sat in the open square of the city, for no one took them into his house to lodge. That detail is quiet, but devastating. In Israel, hospitality should have been a light in the night. A traveler should not have sat exposed in the square while houses stood closed. An old man came from his work in the field at evening. He was also from the hill country of Ephraim, though he lived in Gibeah. He saw the traveler in the city square and asked where he was going and where he came from. The Levite explained that they were traveling from Bethlehem in Judah to the far side of Ephraim. They had straw and feed for the donkeys, bread and wine for themselves. They lacked nothing but lodging, the old man answered. "Peace be to you. Let all your needs lie on me. Only do not lodge in the street." He brought him into his house and gave feed to the donkeys. They washed their feet, ate, and drank. For a moment, it seems the old ways of kindness have returned. A door opened, a table prepared, feet washed, night shelter given. But outside, the city had a darkness in it. Men of the city surrounded the house, beating at the door, demanding wickedness. The old man went out to them and pleaded with them not to do such folly. What followed was grievous. The woman was given into the hands of violent men, and she suffered through the night. At dawn, she came and fell at the door of the man's house, with her hands on the threshold. When morning came, the Levite rose to go his way. He opened the doors and found her there. She did not answer when he spoke. He placed her on the donkey and went home. Then he sent the terrible sign throughout Israel, calling the tribes to consider what had been done. Let us not dwell on the physical horror. Let us dwell on the moral ruin. A woman at the threshold. A city without protection. A household unable to hold back violence. A Levite whose own actions are deeply troubling. A nation shocked awake not by ordinary righteousness, but by the extremity of disgrace. All who saw the sign said that such a deed had not been done or seen from the day the children of Israel came up out of Egypt to that day. Consider it, they said. Take counsel and speak. Then all the children of Israel went out, from Dan to Beersheba, and from the land of Gilead the congregation assembled as one man to the Lord at Mizpah. 400,000 footmen who drew the sword gathered as one. The tribes asked how the wickedness happened. The Levite gave his account. He spoke of Gibeah's men rising against him, surrounding the house, intending to kill him, violating his concubine so that she died. He said he had divided and sent her because they had committed lewdness and folly in Israel. All the people arose as one man. They would not return to their tents until the matter was addressed. They sent men through the tribe of Benjamin, saying, "What wickedness is this that has happened among you? Now therefore deliver up the men, the wicked fellows who are in Gibeah, that we may put them to death and put away evil from Israel." But Benjamin would not listen. Instead, the children of Benjamin gathered from their cities to Gibeah to go out to battle against the children of Israel. Brother stood against brother. The tribe that should have helped remove evil instead defended its own against justice. The children of Israel went up to Bethel and asked counsel of God. Who shall go up first for us to battle against Benjamin? The Lord said, Judah first. Israel rose in the morning and encamped against Gibeah. The battle went badly. Benjamin struck down many men of Israel. The people went up and wept before the Lord until evening. They asked whether they should again draw near to battle against Benjamin their brother. The Lord said, Go up against him. The second day also brought loss. Again, Israel came to the house of God. They wept. They sat there before the Lord. They fasted that day until evening and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. The ark of the covenant of God was there in those days, and Phinehas son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, stood before it. They asked, Shall I yet again go out to battle against the children of Benjamin my brother, or shall I cease? The Lord said, Go up, for tomorrow I will deliver him into your hand. The third battle turned. Israel set ambushes around Gibeah. Benjamin came out as before and began to strike some of the people. They thought victory was repeating itself, but smoke rose from the city. Benjamin looked behind them, and the city went up in smoke toward the sky. Disaster had come. The men of Benjamin fled toward the wilderness, but the battle overtook them. Thousands fell. Only 600 men turned and fled toward the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon, where they stayed 4 months. The civil war nearly erased a tribe from Israel. The people who had gathered to confront wickedness now looked upon devastation and wept. At Bethel they sat before God until evening, lifted up their voices, and wept bitterly. Lord, the God of Israel, why has this happened in Israel, that there should be one tribe lacking in Israel today? In their zeal and oaths they had sworn not to give their daughters to Benjamin as wives. Now they grieved that Benjamin might vanish. The last chapter of Judges is filled with sorrowful human attempts to repair disaster through more troubling means. They sought wives for the surviving Benjamites without breaking their oath. Jabesh-Gilead was judged for not coming to the assembly, and women were taken from there. Still, there were not enough. Then they arranged for the remaining Benjamites to take women from the daughters of Shiloh when they came out to dance in the yearly feast. It is a strange, painful ending. No triumphant song. No Deborah under the palm. No Gideon breaking pitchers. No angel rising in flame. Only a fractured people trying to preserve a tribe after nearly destroying it. The children of Benjamin returned to their inheritance. They rebuilt cities and lived in them. The children of Israel departed from there at that time, every man to his tribe and family. They went out from there, every man to his inheritance. Then the final word falls. In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. The book ends with the sound of unfinished longing. It does not end by saying Israel needed merely a stronger sword. It does not end by saying they needed better roads, larger cities, or louder songs. It ends with a people spiritually exhausted, a people who had received mercy again and again, yet kept forgetting the Lord, a people delivered from enemies, yet not healed from rebellion, a people with judges, but no lasting righteousness, a people with memories of covenant, but hearts prone to wander. In those days there was no king in Israel. That line carries more than politics. It carries a longing for faithful leadership, for wisdom, for righteousness, for a shepherd who would not exploit the flock, for a ruler under God's own rule, for a heart that would lead the people back to the Lord. The age of the judges was full of mercy, but it was also full of warning. Othniel showed that the Spirit of the Lord could raise a steady deliverer. Ehud showed that God could use what men did not expect. Deborah showed wisdom beneath a palm tree, and Barak learned courage under a prophet's word. Jael's tent became the place where iron pride fell. Gideon showed that fear can still obey, and that God can save by 300 men with trumpets and torches. But Gideon also showed that victory must be guarded, because the heart can turn even trophies into snares. Abimelech showed ambition without God, a bramble king whose fire consumed the people who raised him. Tola, Jair, Ibzan, Elon, and Abdon remind us that quiet leadership matters, even when Scripture gives only a few lines. Jephthah showed courage and knowledge, but also the sorrow of a rash vow, and the wound of a rejected man carrying rejection into leadership. Samson showed strength beyond nature, yet weakness within. He tore lions, carried gates, broke ropes, and shook a temple, but his deepest cry came in blindness, "Remember me." Micah showed religion without obedience. Dan showed ambition mixed with idolatry. Gibeah showed what happens when hospitality dies and violence fills the street. The war with Benjamin showed that even righteous outrage can become a river difficult to control, and that a people may grieve over ruins their own hands helped make. Through it all, the Lord remained holy, patient, grieved, just, merciful. He gave Israel over, but he did not erase Israel. He disciplined, but he heard. He allowed them to taste the bitterness of their chosen ways. Yet when they cried, he raised deliverers. Again and again, mercy waited in the wilderness. Again and again, when the night seemed thick, some unexpected light appeared. A left-handed man with a hidden blade, a woman beneath a palm, a reluctant warrior on Mount Tabor, a hidden farmer in a winepress, a torch inside a clay jar, a spring opened for a thirsty strong man, a remnant preserved at the rock of Rimmon. The book of Judges is not gentle because humanity is gentle. It is gentle because God's mercy keeps appearing in a violent age like a lamp that refuses to go out. And perhaps, as we listen at night, that is what we carry with us. Not the noise of battle, not the darkness of human failure, but the quiet warning and the quiet hope. For the human heart still forgets. It still builds small idols and calls them security. It still looks for kings of its own making. It still mistakes strength for holiness, success for blessing, emotion for repentance, and custom for faithfulness. But the Lord still remembers mercy. The Lord still knows how to raise help from unlikely places. The Lord still hears the cry of the low. The Lord still grieves over misery. The Lord still calls his people back from the gods that cannot save. The age of judges points beyond itself. It leaves us longing for a better king than Abimelech, a wiser ruler than the bramble, a purer strength than Samson's, a truer sacrifice than Jephthah's sorrowful vow, a deeper deliverance than one generation of rest, a shepherd who would not merely rescue Israel from enemies for a season, but save his people from their sins. The night over Judges is deep, but it is not starless. Above the hills of Ephraim, above the valleys of Jezreel, above the palm of Deborah, above Gideon's winepress, above Samson's prison, above Shiloh's quiet house of God, the same heaven stretched wide. The Lord who had called Abraham still watched. The Lord who had spoken to Moses still reigned. The Lord who had brought Joshua into the land still kept covenant. And though Israel wandered, his purpose did not wander. Though Israel forgot, the Lord remembered. So let the story settle now. Let the ancient hills grow quiet. Let the trumpet fade. Let the torches burn low. Let the river Kishon murmur in the dark. Let the caves of Midian's oppression empty. Let the palm leaves move softly in the night air. Let the fields rest after harvest. Let the broken roads of judges become still beneath the stars. And as you rest, remember this. The book of Judges is a sorrowful mirror, but it is also a witness. It tells the truth about human failure. It tells the truth about spiritual drift. It tells the truth about the cost of forgetting God. But it also tells the truth about mercy. Mercy that comes after crying. Mercy that raises deliverers. Mercy that waits longer than human faithfulness lasts. Mercy that does not call darkness light, yet still brings light into darkness. The people had no king, but the Lord was still their God. The tribes were scattered, but the covenant was not broken. The land was weary, but heaven was not empty. The fires in the distant hills are fading now. The old storyteller beside the quiet fire lowers his voice. The night is wide over Israel. Somewhere, sheep bells sound faintly on a slope. Somewhere, a mother draws her child close. Somewhere, an altar stone cools beneath the stars. Somewhere, wind moves through olive trees, and the leaves whisper like prayers too old for words. Rest now. Let your breathing slow. Let the burdens of the day loosen from your hands. The Lord who remembered Israel in the days of Judges remembers his people still. He remembers in the cave. He remembers by the river. He remembers under the palm tree. He remembers in the winepress. He remembers in the prison. He remembers in the wilderness. Sleep may come gently now, like dew on the fleece, like dawn over the hills, like peace returning to a land that has known long trouble. This has been the shepherd's Bible, and even in the wilderness, the Lord remembered his people.